Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. We're getting ready to set up for a quick live view, live streaming for today's session. I'll just give it a couple of more minutes for all those other users that are just joining us for today. Give it a couple of more minutes, maybe about a minute or two, so that everyone can join us today. Again, I want to take the time and thank everyone who's joining us today for this quick video tutorial. And like as every other video, I'll wait for the Q&A. I'll leave the Q&A for after the video. First, we'll just go over a quick review over today's topic. And I'll try to keep it as brief as possible. If you have any more questions, again, just put them on the comments. I'll try to reach out, just go over it after the Q&A. Feel free to leave some comments as well. Yes, today's topic is capture editing workflow. We're going to go over just a breakdown on how to do it, and I'll show you one of the example files that I did earlier this year that works perfect for everyone that's just starting off with Percpetion Neuron. Okay, I will go ahead and get started with this video. And thank you. I see a lot of people are joining us today. So that's excellent. Good to hear. And just to always remind everyone, if any emails, just send them over to contact@neuronmocap.com. We have a team there ready for any questions regarding Percpetion Neuron. We have a help desk out there available as well. If you have any questions and you just want to see if there's anything out there before you submit an email, feel free to send an email to, just search for there, for any questions that you might have. There's a link on top for your reference. And as always, in every single video, just always remember to look at the 3 essentials of Percpetion Neuron. That is a very important video for everyone to look at. It just shows you what to expect, and how to prepare before every time you even put a suit on. So those are very important steps to always remember. Last week we spoke about Axis Neuron interface. Just a brief overview on interface for Axis Neuron. Where the panels are, where to locate them. Very brief overview. And don't forget, there's information on our Axis Neuron manual as well. So that there's also documentation and the video as well. And again, today's topic is capture editing workflow. We have a lot of users who ask us, how do you edit animation? Where do you start? Where do you begin? So we'll go ahead and jump into that so you can understand the workflow. Always remember to get your copy of Axis Neuron on our website. There's a link for you to have for reference. Again, that is neuronmocap.com/downloads. So it's out there available for everyone. We have a demo. And for our customers, the users, we have the full version. Simply just register your suit on our website, and you'll get our email for that download link. So this is a brief diagram that I have for everyone up here. And it's very helpful for everyone to understand the workflow. And we're building up to this towards the workflow for Percpetion Neuron. Before you set up, while you set up, and getting comfortable with Axis Neuron. So the first thing always, as I always mention, essentials are very important. Essentials are very important for everyone to understand, and so that everyone can prepare with Percpetion Neuron. And the essentials is basically environment, placement, and calibration. And then once you set up, with the environment placement and calibration, we have a video there for everyone to see. Is you basically connect your perception neuron suit with axis neuron. We have a little diagram here of the little character here, so that that's kind of our perception neuron. So that perception neuron character that we have there. So that's kind of like the setup process of getting axis neuron. So once you connect perception neuron with your suit, basically you have the configure process of perception neuron. Let me just wait for a couple of more seconds to make sure that image shows up on the screen for you. Just to make sure I have the screen here so you guys have the diagram. Just bear with me 1 second, guys. Okay, just bear with me 1 second, guys. All right, sorry about that, guys. Just making sure that you guys are able to see the visuals here, what I'm presenting before we continue. So again, we go from the essentials to connecting to configure. Configure, last week we've been speaking about body size. You configure body size information, which is very important for setting up. Body size lets axis neuron understand your dimensions in your body so that it can track contact correctly and movement in relative space. And then you have your working mode. Working mode is also very important so that, if you want to record, for full body, or you want to record for just upper body or single arm mode, you can select that option. So that's inside of axis neuron. So the next portion that we want to go over with is just parameters. So that you can prepare for recording. So these are the last 3 topics I want to speak about, so that you could get comfortable with, during the recording process. So it's a step-by-step process for everyone, so that, everyone can record inside of axis neuron. Okay, and then that's the parameters section. And this is the workflow. This is very important to feel comfortable with axis neuron. And basically with the workflow is, once you record your animation, there's a step process during that situation. And it is parameters is number 1. You edit your parameters, functions, and then you do your contact editing, and then you do your smooth editing. Now this process is very important because it lets you basically, follow the workflow for axis neuron, and then that's so that you can understand how to prepare for recording. There's a couple of things you can't do. For example, you can't edit first and then go to parameters and then start, tweaking those numbers and stuff, for example. The workflow is always parameters, which is number 1. Then you do contact editing, then you do smooth editing. Smooth editing is basically just kind of like the polish on the MOCAP for everyone. So given the situation here, let's say we have parameters here. I'll go over brief with parameters. I have like a little text here document so that you can see for everyone out there. The text here is also available on our manual. So if you don't see the entire text, definitely check out our manual where you can see this information right here in front of us. So this is part of the parameters field inside of axis neuron. The parameters is very important because that's the process that you do before you record and then after, in case of something might have been, if you need to edit something. It's, I'll sum it up for you, for everyone out there in this little video. so that everyone can understand what's going on here. So let's jump into axis neuron. And so I'll go brief, with the parameters. Parameters is very important so that, you're basically editing the engine, the algorithm engine inside of axis neuron. Before you start recording, it's very recommended to adjust according to, the algorithm. Basically, the joint step is the first step, I would say, to definitely visit. By default, the values are here in front of you. This is 0.65, 0.85, 0.25. So these are default values. A lot of our users don't feel comfortable moving that along. Definitely, so that we can, so that everyone can feel comfortable using this information. I'll go over down the line. And first thing is we see is joint stiffness. Joint stiffness is basically just, a way of telling axis neuron that how much influence do you want the body size to have on the algorithm. Do I want full 100% value? I want the body size to influence the algorithm, or do I just want it to be zero, minimal influence? Again, there's this information is on our manual, so everyone can read and understand a little bit better. But I'm pretty much sum it up. Is the joint stiffness is how much do you want the bones to be influenced by the body size? Okay. The next one here is step stiffness and step constraint. Step stiffness and step constraint work hand in hand, and like I put here on the document here, it's the best way to explain it is it's speed versus threshold. And then step stiffness is how fast do you want the algorithm of the foot contact to react from the ground. Do you want a fast reaction? Do you want a slow reaction? Now this is very important if you either have somebody having a slow walk or somebody versus somebody running. So obviously the higher the value, the more faster the contact point is going to react. Basically, it's going to be snappy, if you will. If you bring it all the way to the bottom where it's zero value, you basically have a very slow reaction to the ground constraint, where the contact point is going to be very slow. So this is something that everyone can understand a little bit better. It's just it depends on if you have somebody walking or you have somebody running, you adjust that accordingly to step stiffness. Step stiffness makes it a faster response versus a lower response on the contact point. Step constraint is basically what I like to sum it up as a threshold. At what point do you want axis neuron to understand that there is contact point in your performance? You can put by default it's going to be 0.25. That's kind of like a safe area, safe margin, if you will. If you increase that, you're going to increase the threshold. If you decrease that, you decrease the threshold. It's just a matter of do you want the algorithm to read be very sensitive to foot contact, basically. So step stiffness and step constraint work hand in hand. Step stiffness being speed of how the algorithm reacts to ground constraint versus step constraint, which is a threshold. At what level, maybe height or contact do you want axis neuron to understand that okay, this is a foot contact. So these two options here is very important to understand when you have somebody, again, walking or running. By default, the default values work very well for both scenarios, but you might have somebody kind of doing like a very, very slow walk, kind of like a sneaky movement or something. So you would kind of adjust to having the algorithm capture that foot contact a little bit, smooth. So you would decrease the values for both of them just by, a quarter or so, so that, the contact is a bit smooth, If you have somebody running, likewise, you would kind of adjust accordingly, so that the foot contact could be, very, very accurate. So that's kind of, a brief look at, step stiffness and constraint. Now, the reason why I bring this up is because you can actually edit this information before you record. So if you have somebody with a perception on suit, you can have them walk around after you, of course, after you survey your area, have them walk around the environment again with the suit activated inside of Axis Neuron and make your adjustments. One helpful option for this would be if you're in an environment that's, that it's not, 100% perfect or ideal, but, you can kind of, maybe let's say if you're getting too much drifting in your environment, then you can increase this value, just tenths, 0.3 tenths of the value. Just increase it by a little bit, and you're going to see the foot contact be a little bit more secure, more dead on, so that it minimizes any drift on the feet. So, that's something that you can do before you record. So that's your configure is what, going back to the slide that I had earlier, is, you configure this during your capture phase. Again, by default, the values work pretty well, but feel free to, adjust the values either to 1 to 0 for the joint stiffness, step stiffness, and step constraint. So feel comfortable with that. That's something that you can do before you do your motion capture. Also, moving along to the contact side of the parameters. Anti-mag, as we spoke a couple of weeks back on our other previous live stream, it's just, a matter of just disabling your magnetometers. If you're in an environment that you see that's causing a lot of rotational drift in your sensors, you can actually remove the magnetometers from your suit on either the feet or the entire for that portion of it. So that can be done at the point of configuring stage. In the ground constraint, that's if you're going to be doing stairs. By default, the Axis Neuron avatar tracks ground. It locks to the ground always. So no matter if you're moving up the stairs at a higher level, it's always going to assume that you're on the ground. If you disable that, it'll just read. It'll read kind of like a higher level of capturing. So it'll understand as like there's a stairs in front of you. Again, that also works hand in hand with the body size. So if you're working up the stairs, definitely have a body size for that, so that you can, have that tracking very accurately. The ground height, basically just the how do you want the avatar to what placement? That depends on your post work. If you have somebody on the second floor, for example, or something, you want to adjust the ground height, for example, or something, so that you can track a default value at a higher level. In that case, the foot lock is just in case foot lock is, again, that's in the manual. That's if you're not happy with the step stiffness, the speed of the tracking. You can actually use the Z rotation of the foot contact. So that it can read foot contact at a different level. So it's kind of like an add-on to the step constraint. Basically, it will just activate a foot contact or not, based on the Z-axis. Contact points. One of the most important things to understand with contact points, you have contact points by default. It's on the feet. There's options to do hands and hip. If you're doing hands, one of the best examples that I tell a lot of our users, if you have a user, a performer doing a cartwheel, for example, and you want to capture that, the hand contact, activate that. You want Axis Neuron to say, okay, I want to track contact editing points during this performance, because the the performer is going to be, making the contact with the hand, like a cartwheel. If you record, for example, without the hands, you won't have that information inside of Axis Neuron. You're only going to have foot contact information. So, that again goes with pre-planning, during the configuration for the MOCAP. If you're just going to be doing just basic performance, walking around, running, or something like that, then it's only feet contact involved, then just leave the feet by default. If you're doing like handstands or like anything with hand, on the floor, you want to edit that, you want to clean that out afterwards, then activate the uh, hand option. For the hip option, what it does is like what I like to tell users that if, let's say for example, somebody's on a bike, for example, or on a stool, or sitting down or something like that, pre-plan. Just by default it's disabled. So the moment you do enable, you're basically gonna lock. You're gonna lock the feet onto. Right now, this animation doesn't have contact on the hip, but for example, when you activate the hip, where you're telling Access Neuron is like, hey, I want to track hip as a contact point all the time. So it's gonna parent the hip to in Z space is gonna XYZ space is gonna lock the hip, and you're gonna see the bones of the avatar move around. So imagine seeing somebody walking in a circle. You're gonna see the avatar walking in place in circle. So that's kind of good if you think about it. If you're just working on loops, walking loops, just kind of like character building for MOCAP. So if you lock the hip and you just have a person walk around, you're just capturing animation loops for that example. So that's a good example for hip. For hip height, it's just a matter of if you want to move the person, it's kind of like ground height. If you want to move the avatar higher or lower, for the hip contact option, by default it's 120. But since we don't have hip activated, it doesn't really work. It only works if you have the hip option enabled. So by default, it's 120. The next one is just COM ACC threshold. This is just gravity. How much influence do you want the gravity to have on the contact points, on the center of gravity for the character? You see this little this red ball here in my viewer. That's the center of mass for this avatar. So based on this, I want, this is by default is 0.8 gravity. If you increase this, you're gonna, if that center of gravity is too forward or, whatever case it is, you're telling Access Neuron that I want that, this function to influence the point of contact much more. I want the gravity to influence my contact much more. Again, by default, it's 0.8. That's the ideal option there. You're welcome to change that, of course. So that's there for everyone to see. So again, this is a brief overview of parameters. Again, that's in our user manual for everyone to read and to look at. Once you connect a user, once you connect to a user, for example, you hit connect. Never forget that you want to select the body size. In this example, I'm just going to pick 160. I'm on full body mode, and then I'll do the calibration pose. The calibration pose has been done for the suit already. So then, once you're ready to record, everything's set up here on my parameters. Everything's good to go. I'm already pre-planned my animation, and then you do your recording. You select your file, then you hit record, okay, and then immediately Access Neuron will start recording. Right now I just have a Percpetion on just here as an example for this video. So once you finish recording, what happens? You press the stop button, and then then the video comes here on the working directory. You see the name of it, you see the .raw. I can also say, okay, I want to see the FCD file. So there's no FCD file right now because, as everyone remembers, FCD file is actually the editing information of that, of my file. So if I go to Open Contain Folder here, I will see two files at the moment. I see a .raw file and I see an XML file. XML file again has the information for your parameters, what information you have on that window parameters. So So always keep that in mind. That file gets created by default during the recording stage. So I'll jump into a file that I already have open, well, that I have here recorded. I did this some time ago for video, and I think it'll be very helpful for everyone out there. And I tested recording burpees. Burpees is just repetition workout where you work out full body up and upper lower, and so that involves contact points for the feet and the hands. So this is kind of works as a great example for all our users out there. So you'll see in this video, I'll just play it back so everyone can see. If I go into full function video, full replay and demo. So this is the animation that I have. This is burpees. And so you see there's contact points happening into the feet and the hands. During the recording, I only had the feet contact. So, there's a couple of things going on here for everyone. Okay. So I'm just kind of like, just checking the result. So there's the layout for editing. I'll select the editing. And then, I'm looking at my information here. I basically have information here from the file already, as we mentioned. This is coming from the XML file. Now, keep in mind, this is a kind of like a linear process. As soon as I start doing contact editing, I cannot do parameters. So what I can do, however, I can play around with parameters before I jump into the contact editing. So, that's why I want to show you guys that there's this workflow for everyone. So I'll just hit the default, reset. I kind of just change everything that was on the recording file, and that's kind of shows you what's going on here. This file was recorded with default values. So what happens if I change information here? If I just minimize the step constraint, I can do this right now because I have not edited any contact points. So nothing has happened yet until I hit apply. So as soon as I hit apply, you'll see that the calculation engine is having a hard time capturing the contact points for the ground. It's kind of like floating right now, the situation. So that's kind of what's going on here. And if I go back and I hit pause and I go to step stiffness, I just increase this all the way to the full extent and I hit apply. Then the calculation engine basically goes through the whole animation and checks what's, it recalculates all the points of contacts. And you'll see that the contact points also change as well. So, there's a process during a configuration and there's a process post MOCAP stage. So I'm able to go, just kind of, I'm supervising, I'm looking at, okay, maybe, okay, this works, maybe it doesn't. You make your judgment call based on, your situation with your MOCAP. I know by default, if I go reset and I hit apply, I know that this animation works well with the default values on the joint step. Everything else is good. Now, as I mentioned, there's also hands contacts that I want to capture. For this file, when I recorded it, I didn't record it with hands. So what happens if I select the hands? You'll see here on the contact editing point that we get additional information for the left hand, right hand, and left foot, and right foot is there already. So what happens is, since I didn't select this during the recording process, there's no contact point for the hands. So okay, what do you do? So you can do during configuration process, you can activate that so the Axis neuron can record that contact point during the recording for you, and that you can kind of skip this portion of it, but you still might have to edit some small animation points. But I can still go back into the contact point and kind of edit this information. So I'll zoom in here, and this is extreme case. Hey, I just want to record quick, and I forgot to put the hand contact for this example. So then, you'll see here on the points here, on the contact points, so that you understand, if you right click and drag, you'll see that there's a light blue highlight here that I'm selecting. I'm just right clicking and dragging. If I let go, there's options to contact and uncontact, or just leave it as default calculation. So there's a couple of times that the animation jitters a bit, and you might need to clean up or something. Say for example, at this point of the animation, I can tell that I'm anticipating that, okay, there's really no, all the weight is in the character, correct? So the foot should not be leaving the ground. So I can see that right around here. You see those little red dots? That means that there's contact. And when it comes out, that means there's no contact. We're all familiar with, if we crouch down, our feet don't really leave the floor. So this is kind of like an editing thing that I'll go ahead and do. You can have your animator just kind of clean up this information. So I'll say here on the right foot, there's a contact point, up to here, for example. Okay, so I'll highlight. I'm sorry, I clicked the wrong one. So here, I'll highlight, and I'll put contact. Okay, that's good. And then I'm gonna clean up the right foot. So I'll just do the same thing. So I'm anticipating when my feet leave the ground, so around there. So I'll hit contact. Okay, at that point I'm somewhat in the ground. Okay, so that's kind of like the process here. I'm just cleaning up some animation for the contact points. So I'm anticipating that I'm going to put my hands on the floor. At this point here, there's contact with the hands. So again, there's no contact information on the hand, so I can add that. So I'll just right click and drag right around here, and I'll just say this is full contact. And let me just adjust the window here so I can have more space. Okay, and then somewhere on here, I'll let go. Okay, I'll do the same for the right hand as well. Okay. Okay, so I'll adjust a little bit for the hands. You can see that the feet are they're not lining up. So I'll go ahead and keep on editing a little bit more. So I can work having both, or I can transfer the contact points to the hands. I would generally want the contact points to generate towards the hands, so that there's no conflict of all 4 contact points. So what I'll do is I'll uncontact the feet at this point. Okay. Okay. So let me zoom out so you can see that. So I just cleaned up this information here. So I just kind of cleaned up so that the contact point can be much clearer from the feet versus the hand. This is kind of like a good example for cleanup. So once I play that back, okay, so it looks much better. And basically, you could go throughout the whole animation and just start, cleaning up a lot of this contact information. And you can see there's a lot of jittering on here because there's a little bit of ghost steps that Axis might have picked up, for example. So for example, here I'll just go into the hands, and then I'll clean up the uncontact points for the hands. So I'll go ahead and well, the uncontact is already done for the hands here, so I'll just make sure there's uncontact around here. Right click, uncontact. Okay, and then I'll make sure that the feet are contacting at this point here. Okay, contact here. Okay. Okay, just kind of go over here. So once you play it back, you see it's a little bit much more cleaner for everyone out there. So you see I'm playing around with, you know, the where I want the contact point to focus on, you know, either on the feet or the hands. So once you do that, the animation, you know, it gets much more cleaner for the engine for the axis neuron calculation engine to understand. So you can see the big difference here on my contact editing point for everyone out there to see. You'll see my contact editing point versus, you know, what was recorded. So it's a big difference, you can see. And once I kind of focus into the animation I just cleaned up, it looks much better. It looks 10 times better. So then, you know, that's kind of the process of editing contact points. I hope everyone is able to kind of see, you know, the process of the contact editing points. Same goes for if you have somebody walking in an environment and then you have somebody sitting down on a chair. That there's a possibility of, you know, transferring the contact points from the feet to the chair, like the same way I did as well. Of course, there's a lot of pre-planning and making sure that, you know, it's the workflow will work. This is the perfect way to show an example here where I'm transferring the contact points from, you know, from the feet to the hands in that case. So that's definitely a lot of helpful tips for you guys to understand on that side. So, you know, going back to what I was saying, there's a process of, you know, when you're setting up, you can, you know, choose your parameters during the setup process, and then once you hit record, you have your post work, and then you can edit again the parameters first, and then you do your contact editing. That's kind of like the step process. You know, you do your parameters setup, then you do your contact editing. The moment that I move these sliders and I hit apply, what's going to happen is I'm going to overwrite my contact editing points throughout. So you don't want that. Definitely select your parameters first and do your contact editing. So that's kind of like the workflow. And like I mentioned, the next thing to do is smooth factor. That's the little polishing, if you will, on your animation. We all familiar with motion capture. There's some noise in the animation sometimes, and if you export the file as is to your animator, he might be like going crazy, like, why'd you do this? Why'd you give it to me this way? So you want to smooth out the curves just a little bit. You know, there's options to, you know, to do so. You just hit smooth factor and enable. There's default values there already, and you have different sections. You know, just think of it as like a table. This is to change to smooth out the displacement or the rotation, and that's based if you want it on the hip, feet, or the other bones. These values are just, you know, if you want to smooth it out like a buffer, if you will, like 5 frames forward, 5 frames behind. Obviously, if you increase this to a higher value, the smoother the animation is going to be. Of course, there's sometimes when you do the animation, there's some subtleties in the animation you don't want to lose, and if you smooth it out a little bit too much, you might override that the little subtle movement. So you can leave it by default. It doesn't really like crush your animation. It just smooths out by a little bit, and then you hit the reset. Reset defaults. It's disabled, but enabled will do that. And don't forget to hit apply, of course. So once I do that, right now it's already enabled. If I go, for example, if I just want to edit something, I'm going to get an error by Axis Neuron just telling me that the contact point is unavailable because I have smooth factor on. So, there's a process of doing this. So that's why, again, I stress this out for everyone that, this diagram here for everyone to see that, you go from your setup, your essentials, to your connecting, to the configuration, to the record. And then when you're editing, this is the step process. You do your parameters, you do your contact editing, and then you do your smooth edit. That's very important to understand so that everyone feels comfortable with Axis Neuron. And then once I do this, I basically said, okay, this is a smooth out animation ready to export. Just basically do your export. Again, like we talked over last week, you have different options to export to FBX, 3ds Max, or calculation file, and it'll be the result of what you did, what you edited on the contact points or the smooth factor for that case. So that's basically everything that of information that I wanted to pass for everyone out there, so that you feel comfortable with contact editing. A lot of users ask us, can you change rotation of Axis Neuron? Can I move the arm? Axis Neuron, the contact editing, the editing portion of Axis Neuron is just contact editing, and just kind of tweaking the calculation engine inside of Axis Neuron, and then editing contact points and smoothing out animation. So that's what Axis Neuron does. There's editing at that advanced level for rotation or something like that. You might consider using a different program, a third party to just move characters at a certain direction, or move the arm just a little bit. Keep in mind, like I always say this, if you're, for me, for example, I'm short guy. If I'm animating for a 6 foot tall guy, my arms are going to be totally different from a 6 foot character. You might have to do some post edit. We don't create characters that are one-to-one to our body or whoever's performing. If we did, it'll be a nightmare to try to match your character to the person performing in cases. So you would definitely have to use a third-party program to edit those animation curves, and so that you can avoid those intruding polygons into the character's body. Make sure that their feet don't cross each other, for example, sometimes. So there's always that process. What Axis Neuron does is just lets you edit the calculation engine. You can edit your contact points and smooth out the animation for post work. So I hope that makes sense for everyone, and then everyone can definitely use this information for future MOCAP. Essentially, this tool's great to have so that you can use that information for your character, VR, or anything that you're creating. So I think that's the most of the information I can for everyone out there. Again, don't forget that a lot of this parameters information is on the manual, so that everyone can use it as a reference. Don't think this stuff is word for word inside of it, so that's out there. And don't forget the workflow. So I'll open up to questions. I'll read a couple of more questions here inside of in our YouTube channel. So the question is from Jovan is, have we optimized, reconstructed the Neuron since Kickstarter? We've improved the calculation engine. So with every Axis Neuron update, our engineers are optimizing the calculation engine to improve MOCAP. That is the most thing. If you think about the sensors, the size of the sensors are really small. You find those sensors on different devices, different everywhere, and it's all pretty much standardized. It's just a matter of what's driving that. What calculation engine. That's where the recipe is at. So the guys, the engineers, have improved the calculation engine on every release of Axis Neuron. So that's kind of like that's the best explanation I can share with you guys. Will this stay on YouTube? Yes. This video will stay on YouTube for everyone to reference. If you have any questions, leave them here at the on the video. Again, any questions, please relay them to contact@neuronmocap.com. And don't forget that we have a help desk for everyone out there. And we'll try to keep on going with this live stream every week for everyone out there to definitely send us any questions, and so that you guys know that we're here listening to you guys, which is very important for us. So right now the current version of Access Neuron, just to show you guys, the current version of Access Neuron for this video right now, it is 6916, 3.84 6916. This is the latest version right now. If you're a Kickstarter backer and you don't have the software, just make sure you're registered on our website. And I showed that link. This is the link for everyone. Please go to neuronmocap.com/downloads, and you'll see the downloads option for Access Neuron. So that is there for everyone to definitely look at, for everyone out there. Okay, I'm just reading a couple of questions. Bear with me, guys. Sorry, don't want to leave you guys empty either. All right, so the zero pose. Zero pose, the definition of zero pose is just to reset the sensors. I like to call it like somewhat like if you think about it like a DGAUS kind of thing, and what it does just kind of resets the sensors. A lot of times when you're doing performance, and the suit, if you're moving quite a lot, there might be some added information to the MOCAP. Because remember, our suit is IMU based. There's some drift involved, so you want to go back to zero pose and just kind of eliminate any errors that the suit has picked up during a performance. What I like to tell users is that again, it goes back to the 3 essentials of perception neuron, is that you need to find a location where you can perform the zero pose. Don't perform the zero pose anywhere. You want to, when you're going to record, do your survey, do your homework, just kind of go around with the phone app. The phone app I like to use is Sensors Multi-Tool, and it gives me XYZ result of the values and the magnetic values in the environment. So I literally go to the floor and put my phone in, and I kind of look around, and I just check for values, and the number you want to look for is relatively around 30 or less. If I find something that's way below 30, then that's where I'll do the calibration, and that's where I'll do the zero pose, and that's what I like to call the home base. That's where you zero out, and that plays a part a lot if you're doing multiple characters. That's where you're going to be doing a calibration for all the characters, and that's where you're going to be doing a zero pose for every character. Because remember that the suits are tracking a relative space, so Access Neuron needs to understand their relationship within each other. If you just connect every suit back to back and you don't do this, basically Access Neuron is not going to understand where the suits are in relative space. We have a video out there for everyone to take a look at. It's just multiple character setup, and it just goes on with up to 5 for each system. So every Access Neuron supports up to 5. The 3D Max biped skeleton, definitely send us. This is from Undead Studios. Send us an email regarding this so that we have better reports, so that we can understand what the issue is going with. Just detail report, and then we'll try to have this fixed as soon as possible for the next release. Just send us an email, please, so that we can understand any issues you're having with 3ds Max. That will go a long way. So thank you again for those questions. I'll keep it a little bit open for one more question for everyone out there, and I just want to thank all those who joined us today for this quick, brief tutorial. We went a little bit over more than I thought, but I hope everyone found this video very helpful. Okay, so I think I'll just wrap this session up for everyone. And I'll leave this video up there. Keep the comments coming. We'll have this video up for everyone to see. And again, for any questions, contact at neuronmocap.com is where to reach us. We'll follow up next week where we'll be showcasing our Perception Neuron suits in quite a pretty amazing environment for everyone to check out. So there's a lot of exciting things going on for everyone. There's multiple, there's full body capture, there's face capture going around, and then there's a couple of events that we're working on. So stay tuned, visit our blog, check us out on Facebook, follow us on Instagram, Facebook, all the social media stuff out there. We like to tell everyone what's going on. We see our users using Perception on a lot of exciting things going on, so keep us in the loop and we'll keep you guys posted. So thank you again for joining us today. And have a good one, guys. Thank you.